lay it in your hand so I can see it then after you come.
So I just dropped a smaller bait down, VMC small jig with a plastic on. I had a little bit larger. Oh, there he is. I had a little bit larger bait on prior, and I couldn't get him to take. So I dropped down a little bit smaller profile. It's really extremely cold. It was 17 below when we left this morning. We decided to jump in the Yetti. Oh, nice crappie. Decided to jump in the Yetti instead of using portable shacks today, just due to the fact it's so darn cold. And it's definitely paying off, and we're having fun doing it. And I guess all you do is downsize a little bit to get them to bite. And it's a very nice crappie here in northern Minnesota. We'll probably tuck him back. We'll let that one go, and maybe let my kid catch that one someday. Oop, yep. Got one working the dangler here now. I got a full minnow on, and this dangler is super awesome. It's considered a tip down, so I'm now watching my bait and I'm watching that fish bite. So what I got going on now, that just bit it. I'm pretty sure he's on there. So what I'm going to do is this nice sweeping hook set, and I missed him. But what's nice about this is I just reset my depth. I put it right back on the dangler. I have no bobbers to worry about. This is pretty much like opposite of a tip up, but you got a rod and reel, and it's now I just sit here and sit back and use my jigging rod with my Markham and let my minnow do the work here. So we just had a school of crappies come in. I ended up catching one here on my jigging rod, and I missed one on the dangler with a full minnow. It's really cold out, so a lot of times these fish are pretty lazy, so I always like to have a bobber rod set, you know, a couple feet off bottom. And a great product is a dangler. I just set it up just like that. I can focus on my electronics and my jigging rod, but in Minnesota you can have two rods, so it's always nice to have an option. And right now I'm just getting my jigging rod back down. I just set my minnow. I look over and I got one coming up here on the Markham. Let's see if I can get him to bite. Normally when there's 2, 3, 4 fish on the graph, I kind of imagine it as they get extremely aggressive. They kind of fight for that falling food. So I'd like to pull it out of the school a little bit, and as soon as they close the gap on electronics, I just stare at my rod tip. Here he comes. Come on. Oh, there's a bunch of them down there now. Hopefully they get extremely aggressive, being that they're a bunch of them, a whole school that's moved through. They usually get pretty aggressive. There we go. That fish came up a couple different times. Finally another fish showed up on the graph and finally triggered one of them to bite. I don't know if it was the one that was already down there. Nice crappie. Something we're after there. Not a true giant, but got one on the dangler here. And I'm going to let that dangler do its job. The nice bowl of the rod. Boom, there he is. There he is. This one is caught on a minnow. The first one was caught on a Acme tungsten tackle. And this one's got just a, oh man. This big perch, holy cow. Big jumbo perch mixed in with some nice crappies. This was caught on a full minnow. Just minnow was down there just doing its job on the dangler. Dangler popped it once. Rod went down nice and slow on the tip down. End result, a big jumbo perch. Beautiful fish. Look at the belly on that thing. Just an absolute giant jumbo perch. Struck gold. We got one coming here. Come on, baby. Come on. Just had one come screaming up here. See if we can entice him to bite. I'm going to pull it out of his, make him chase it, kind of make him a little mad. Let's see if we can get him to go. Right on the bait. Normally when I do, I just had a fish come up 2 times. So what I do when that fish doesn't want to eat is I'll pull way above him and I'll work it all the way down to where they were. Now this one just came up screaming up. I must be 4, 5, 6 feet of where I was originally fishing. I was pulling it up and I was going to work that jig back down to where the fish were, and that fish just came up and then he bit. He bit on the jig even. Kind of nice when they bite on the jig. You kind of know they're real aggressive. This feels a nice one here. Oh, small crappie. That one felt a lot bigger than it was, but so what I do, this fish came up 2-3 times. I pulled it way up out of the school of fish, and this one was extremely aggressive. The other two that were down there might have been a little larger, but not so aggressive. So I pull it above these fish, and I work it nice and slow. I just let my jig and my plastic work all the way back down to these fish, and then when I get back to that fish, normally you can tell what fish is going to come out of that school of fish and finally eat. Oh, there he is. The dangler strikes again. All right. When they move in through schools, it sure is nice to have 2 rods. This one is another nice perch. A little bit smaller than the last couple we caught, but perch seemed like to really hit the full minnow, and man, oh man, that thing ate it. It's a little bit small for table fare for me, so what I'm going to do is just tuck them right back down and catch me another one. What's super awesome about the dangler, this thing is so universal. You can use it in a beautiful wheelhouse like this, out on the ice in the freezing cold temperatures, or also they're designed to set on top of a bucket, so you can have it up in the air if you're fishing a little distance away. It also helps spread the rods out on brake lines, basins, wherever you might be fishing. Just very universal. A lot of guys ask me, you know, do you ever get nervous on losing your rods? Well, absolutely not, because this thing can go all the way down, and that fish could be tugging and pulling, and by the time I get there, that rod is still right there, right where I need it to be to make a great hook set. Get back to this one here. It's coming up. There he is. Wrapped around my transducer cord here, maybe. Feels like a nice one here. Oh yeah, nice crappie. Get this one out, the dangler's going. Oh no. The action, it's the action. There he is. Ooh, wow, what do we got here? What do we have here? This feels like a better fish. Oh no, oh my goodness. Oh, get up here, baby. Whew. Talk about a Super Bowl weekend. Look at this football. Thing is a giant, another huge jumbo perch. That is a treat to catch. That thing had some shoulders and it showed it. So we've been catching a lot of fish on the Markham behind me, but if I didn't have 2 rods and I didn't have the dangler set up, I definitely would have missed this toad. And I definitely didn't want to miss this one. This thing is a fat, healthy perch. And when you can have 2 rods in Minnesota, why not have 2 rods in Minnesota? The end result is another fish in the bucket, and definitely a great fish to take a picture of. Here comes a screamer. Oop. Man, using electronics is sure fun catching them through the ice, boy. Oh. Another crappie here. I tell you what made my day today is A, catching a lot of fish, but B, I don't get a chance to fish in a Yetti fish house very often, so when I do, it's definitely a treat. School moved in here. Let's see if we can get another one to go right off the bat here. Here he comes, here he comes. There he is. Ooh, this could be a little bit better one here. I must have had 7, 8 fish on the graph here. I pulled this one about 2.5 feet over and above where the fish were sitting. Oh yeah, this is a nice crappie here. Whew. There's a giant. Absolutely. I must have had 8, 9 fish on the graph. This one I just kept pulling up slowly, 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 and picked him off at probably 2 or 3 feet over and above the fish that were already 3-4 feet off bottom. End result, giant northern Minnesota crappie.